Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all an update to my future card Buddyfight Gargantua Dragon G-Evo deck profile for post the 10th anniversary future card Buddyfight set. We got some new cards, believe it or not, for the future card Buddyfight game in the 10th anniversary set. With it, we got a bunch of new revival spell and items along with some cards commemorating the 10th anniversary of Buddyfight, one of them being DD Gargantua Dragon Revival Buddy, along with some other Dragon World cards. I figured I would update the Dragon World variant for Gargantua Dragon, with the main focus being G-Evo and Deity G-Evo, being able to change Gargantua Dragon Revival Buddy into the many different forms that he had throughout the series and the many different Buddyfight Ace booster packs. We haven't had an update to this deck since the Buddy Ragnarok set many years ago, but with the 10th anniversary deck, I know a lot of people will be updating plenty of their Buddyfight decks with the new support, so I figured we'd start with the one that really got me into the game as well, being the Gargantua Dragon deck. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for starters, our buddy in the deck is DD Gargantua Revival Buddy, and as I said also, the flag for the deck is Dragon World for this variant. With the buddy being DD Gargantua Revival Buddy, we're also running 4 additional copies in the main deck as well. With this card, you can use this card with all flags if you're buddy, and you may also use Dragon monsters from all worlds. So even though Dragon World is our main focused world for this deck, we have plenty of other Gargantua Dragons from other worlds as well. And with this card's call cost being pay 2 gauge and put the top card of your deck into your soul, and being able to, during your turn, call this card from the soul of a Dragod by paying that call cost, its counter as well being Deity G-Evo during each player's attack phase. Call up to 1 monster with both Dragod and Deity Dragon Tribe from your hand for this card for the added play of Deity Gargantua Dragon Revival Buddy. So you have that added setup of being able to G-Evo during the attack phase, just having to call that card. You don't even have to attack with your Deity Gargantua Revival Buddy to do so. You go and activate Deity G-Evo once, and also it's counted as and treated as G-Evo as well. So you'll get the additional G-Evo abilities of some of your other Gargantua Dragons, with some of them being one of our best ones in the deck, being our DD Gargantua Dragon Dual Mode. It has the most abilities of all of our Gargantua Dragons, having Move, Penetrate, Double Attack, Soul Guard, and Counterattack. And when it enters the field, for all Deity Dragon Tribes on the field, get plus 10,000 if entered by G-Evo. You can also destroy up to 2 cards on your opponent's field and draw 2 cards. It just replenishes cards you have, destroying your opponent's resources, and also powering up all your other Deity Dragon Tribes on the field as well, including your items that have Deity Dragon Tribe in them as well. Our other Gargantua Dragon cards include 2 copies of our Gargantua Dragon Sonic Mode. This one's more of a protective option with move as well as additional draw power and gaining life as well. The one thing that our dual mode does not do is gain life, so having a card with the counterattack option, just like our dual mode, to be able to go into is just an added option on top of dual mode. Also, the 2 copies of Gargantua Dragon Charging Mode. With this version, when it entered by G-Evo, you put the top card of your deck into your gauge, gain a life, and draw a card. And when it enters the field, you just put the top 2 cards of your deck into your gauge. So there's a potential for this card of just being able to put a card into the soul from your hand. So you can also put your DD Gargantua Dragon Revival Buddy from the hand into the soul, attack with this card for its double attack, and then have the 2 gauge ready to pay the call cost for Revival Buddy Gargantua Dragon to come out as well. Some of our one-ofs for the Gargantua Dragons being 1 copy of Gatling Mode, 1 copy of Blade Mage, and also the 1 copy of Cyclone Mode. So we have more of the multiple attack option, the spell burn damage that you can do, and then the varying skills of Gatling Mode depending on which ability you want to use when this card enters through G-Evo. With the last of our Gargantua Dragon monsters being 1 copy of the original Gargantua Dragon and the 1 copy of Daybreak Roar Gargantua, Gargantua. Now, G-Evo does not have a restriction for how many times you can G-Evo during a turn, unlike our DD G-Evo, which is once per turn. So you can use your Gargantua dragons as the additional attack options with these cards, being able to just G-Evo in top of another one, attack again, G-Evo, and then go into your new Gargantua dragon with the added option for a buddy call, and then also the deity G-Evo into one of your other Gargantua dragons, setting up your soul with a variety of other Gargantua dragon monsters. Additional monsters that we run in the deck, 3 Garcat for the added buildup of our gauge and draw power. Being a size 1 monster, can also be used for some of the other cost cards that we run in the deck, including our Garhalen to then be able to use for additional life and gauge boosting, and also the 3 copies of Ilze Gardra. For this card, having the counter, just be able to call it from the hand to the field, and when this card attacks, you put the top card of your deck in your gauge, gain 1 life, and then if there's a dragon on your field, draw a card. So an additional attack boost option as well for a proper other monster to have for the size limit, since our Gargantua dragon monsters are all size 2. We won't go over the size limit with this or Garcat on the field. And our items that we run in the deck, 1 copy of Gargasaber and the 1 copy of Garzillion Sword. I only run the 1 of copies for these cards because of our next spell. 1 sets up the G-Evo option, being able to G-Evo with our weapon, as well as just more of a setup for search power with Garzillion Sword, being able to set up our Gargantua monsters in the drop zone for us to then be able to use for our G-Evo. For the spells that we run in the deck, I am running the 4 copies of the new spell, Dragod's Shine Revival spell. I'm running this over the original Dragod's Shine. It just has so much more potential than that card. In the deck, for its cast cost, you pay 1 life. You choose and use one of the following 2. You may only cast Dragod's Shine Revival spell once per turn. You put up to 1 item from your deck into your hand and shuffle your deck. That's why we also run just 1-ofs for our items. Or you can put up a total of up to 2 Dragon World or Dragod monsters with different card names from your drop zone into your hand. Then if you put 1 or more deity dragon tribe, put the top 2 cards of your deck into your gauge. So it just has 2 Dragon World and or Dragod monsters. So with this Dragod Shine, you can potentially add back other deity dragon tribes and not just Gargantua dragon back to your hand, with the main play obviously being to set up your G-Evo once again with an additional monster that you add back, but also giving you the gauge cost needed to be able to call out that card. This could be a 1 card comeback if you have nothing else on the field, being able to give you that play with just 1 life to use it. And also for the new spells, 4 copies of Green Dragon Shield Revival spell. This card cannot be nullified. Choose and use one of the following 2. You may only cast Green Dragon Shield Revival spell once per turn. Counter for this turn, the next damage you take from attacks becomes 0, and the next damage you take from your opponent's card effects becomes 0. So it cannot be nullified, and you also just have this counter option to prevent damage the next time you would take it from an attack or from an opponent. And then you can also instead, on your own turn, draw a card, put the top card of your deck into your gauge for each card on your field, and gain 1 life for each card on your field. It's just more and more setup, giving you that draw card, and then also just more setup for your additional plays as well. It's really good, once again, 1 card comeback that you can do just like Dragon Shine, so a definite 4 of in the deck when you use it. We're also running the 4 copies of Dear Friend. Extra protection by just dropping a Dragod from your hand. Being able to choose and use one of the following 2. You can either use it to draw 2, then if you have a Dragod on your field, or in your, basically 3 or more different Dragods in your drop zone, draw a card. So it's a draw 2 and then an additional draw 1. Or a counter for this turn, damage you take is reduced by 3. So if your opponent's attacking with monsters that have 3 damage or less, it'll just reduce any of that damage that they take, making them have to use a link attack to be able to hit for you for any damage. And also just an added setup of being a counter for that play for you to use. And also 3 additional spells for some of the higher counts. We use 4 copies of Battle of Glory. You pay 1 life to use it. It also has G-Evo. Check in the top 5 cards of your deck to then call a dragon, basically a DD dragon tribe or a Dragod without paying its call cost on top of a Dragod monster. And it gets +5 power and defense, and it counts as G-Evo as well. So if you call a Gargantua dragon on top of another one, it will act as G-Evo because of it. 3 copies of Garhalen, mentioned before. We were running this card just for additional gauge build buildup and life, being able to send one of our size 1 or less monsters to the drop to then be able to gain life or gauge, depending on what we need. It's also counter, so if our opponent swings into one of our monsters, we can use Gar Highland for them to then miss that attack target on the field. 3 copies of our Gar Oracle for the more draw power and gain life options when we have a Drag God on the field. And for the last of cards, 2 copies of Radiant Combat Deity's Glory. You just want to run a good number of cards that have G-Evo in this deck so you can rely on that play setup. And this card can do it again from the drop for the Gargantua monsters, with the last of our spells being 2 copies of Fighter's High. It returns all cards from your drop back into your deck, and then you basically will not take any damage, and your Deity Dragon Tribe on the field cannot be destroyed with this card, and you can only use this card once per fight, but we run the 2 just in case it ends up in the gauge as one of the spots for you to then have a guaranteed protection card for you against your opponent, and then to have a comeback play on the next turn with your Deity Dragon Tribe monsters that survive. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. I'll be doing a lot of different updates for the many different Buddyfight decks since we've had so much new support in this 10th anniversary set to look forward to with all of these new cards and decks to update as well. Definitely let me know what you'd like to see down in the comments below for other Buddyfight decks. And until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Qualia out.